guys would like to have a season go after winning a Grey Cup. But you've seen what this organization, what this team can do, when it's at its best. Are you confident that you guys could get back to that next year, or do you feel like there could be a bit of retooling going on with this group?
Which answer do you think I'm going to give? Yeah, we always believe in ourselves, right? And we believe in coming out or first of all, having a great off season, right? And so that is the initial part, right? So I think in these kind of situations, I think you're extra particular about the little things, about the details, and so we will do our best to come out swinging next year. There's no question about it.
I'm sure seeing the teams that did finish ahead of you, you definitely want to remind those teams where you're not far off from when you won a Grey Cup. You don't want this to be, and you talked about this before, you don't want this to be a one and done sort of situation where you win a championship and you're out. So where do you feel like is going to be the biggest area you guys are going to try to address? I know it's going to take some time to figure out the whole roster and stuff, but just from what you observed, especially when this team was struggling, what did you observe as like areas you want to find a way to address?
Well, I think the very first thing is I want to say that we didn't just win a Grey Cup, right? We won 2 out of 3 Grey Cups, and not only that, we after having a challenging finish, we came out in after the pandemic and took first place, then won the Grey Cup, had the best record tied the best record in league history, then another Grey Cup, and then this season. So in that, we are hoping, but more than hoping, we are working towards understanding that this is the exception, not the other years.
When you look at, and I know that this was a tough situation for you guys with Chad's injury because there was a lot of uncertainty about it, but do you feel like maybe there have been a little more clarity in just having him sit out for the long period and just take the time with it, rather than there was times where there was a little bit of uncertainty whether he was going to be able to play and the kind of the flip-flopping a little bit?
That certainly would have had an impact on your off-season approach. There's no question about that. But you also want, the guy who has won an MVP, has been a real instrumental part of our success. If you have an opportunity to have that guy take the field, I think you want to do that. And what happened was it was going on par for a period of time, and then there was a period in the summer where we found out that there were some things that were not happening as fast as we hoped that they would, and so with that, I don't think you want to simply count him out if there's, which looked like a good possibility that he would be at least back by the first third of the season.
What have your conversations with Chad been like, and going forward, where do you see him kind of being set for next year? Like how are your conversations been with him, and I know his mental aspect of this too, because obviously physically he's got to get better, but mentally he's got to get himself now kind of ramped up and ready too.
Well, first I want to go back a little bit if I could, and say that this guy Arbuckle was doing a very competent job, but we were losing the close game. So we don't want to be remiss on that. It's actually then when you get into your number 3 and your number 4 quarterbacks, that's when it gets really difficult. And so from that point, we're simply going to support him on what he needs to do in the off season, and understand that we're going to have 2 solid quarterbacks going into next year.
Do you envision bringing Nick back as a priority for you guys to have, not only just a bit of a safety net, but knowing to have a really good number 2, because not many teams in the league have a number 2 that can step in like Nick did?
That is right. That is correct. And so, yes, we do desire to have him back and be a part of that equation. And we're in a year that was really difficult. We're excited about moving forward.
What else excites you about this team? I know right now the fans are, they're feeling after a season like this, but what excites you about this group?
When we talk specifically about this group, how they've gone through the challenges. I mean, had a very, and obviously a Grey Cup team a year ago, and we have 3 defensive linemen go to the same team. Then we get two like all-star level defensive linemen to replace them, and we're good to go. And they both get Achilles injuries before week 1, I think, and then on top of that, we have an illegal block on a defensive back, and he tears the ACL, PCL, and MCL, and so did I say illegal outside? I'm sorry, but with that, I think. As we look forward to next season, there's a confidence that is behind that. There's a lot of work to do. There's no question about that, right? But when we look at the work we were able to do from, when we had the pandemic and on through to that first year, I don't know if that's how far we have to kind of go back to kind of see the parallel, but it is an area that we think we're competent in, and going back and really sort of building strong teams from the ground up.
So, Nick, obviously, this is not how you wanted to see your season end, but overall, I think you should be proud of what you've accomplished this year. Is that how you kind of feel like you were able to step in and really put this team? I know you guys didn't reach your goal, but everyone kind of put you guys down with Chad being out, but you seem to really elevate this team. How happy were you with the fact that you were able to do that this year?
Like you said, obviously this isn't how we wanted the season to end, or in terms of our win and loss record and not being able to be in the playoffs. But I'm really happy about how just the team battled throughout the year, and our offense played at a really high level. Throughout most of the season, we were either first or second, in points scored and many statistical categories offensively that showed our impact in the game and what we can do. So I'm really proud of the work the guys have put in to consistently, despite our record, to keep battling. And even as though we look down, kind of that midway point of the season, we fought back. We got on a good win streak going. Unfortunately, we couldn't continue to overcome some of the injuries that we started taking on in September. But it's part of the reason you can't just dig yourself in a hole early on in the year. And while we need to find the ways that as a team and as myself personally, we can start differently and start better. Come back next year and learn from what happened this year, learn from the things to build on and some of the things we need to correct.
I know last year there was a lot of uncertainty about what your football journey was going to look like. Do you feel like you have a lot more clarity now, given how you performed, and you've really seemed to really put yourself in a really good spot with this team and the locker room itself? Do you feel like you have clarity on where you feel now that you can still play at a high level in this league and still be a starting quarterback?
Yeah, for sure. I've never wavered in the confidence in myself and what I could do if given an opportunity. Just never knew, quite where that opportunity was going to be or if it was going to be one. And, I'm really grateful to be able to have the opportunity to play as much as I did this year, be able to showcase what I can do and what I've always believed in myself, my ability to do. Definitely have clarity. I feel like that, there's enough people around the league that, that have seen me play now and have seen me play an extended period of time, who would trust me to be their quarterback. I still don't know what's to come for this offseason or what's to come for next year. But, I've loved playing for this organization the past 2 years. I've loved playing for Dinwiddie and been able to have a lot of success with him and whenever I've have the privilege to be his quarterback. So, whatever happens, I'm just happy to be able to have had this year playing as much as I did and be able to get the opportunity to work with all these guys, all these receivers and O-linemen and players all throughout the team that have helped us, have a memorable year, even though it wasn't the result we wanted.
What's something positive you feel like this group can take going forward? I know it's hard right now given your season's ending and other teams are going to be going and playing for a Grey Cup. But what do you think is positive that this group can take going into the offseason and into next year?
One of the things that kind of stuck out to me throughout the year was how deep of a passing attack we had. How many different receivers had led our team in receiving or receptions or touchdowns at various points in the season. I mean, to be able to throw for as many thousands of yards as we've had, and to not have a single 1,000-yard receiver on the roster is pretty incredible. For us to be able to have Coxie, almost hit 1,000 yards in his first 10 games or so, and then get hurt. Obviously, he's one of the most dynamic and best playmakers in the league. And then after his injury, to be able to hit a 3-game win streak, and for young guys to step up, for Herslow, to catch on fire, taking the spot of Coxie. When he got his chance, all those things were really cool things to look back on. When you're going through 2 months of the season and you're averaging over 30 points a game, that's really successful for an offense in pro football. And we had great moments where we've battled it out with some of the best teams in the league that are going to be going into the playoffs. So, I didn't feel like there was at any point, at least not in the first 15, 16 games, where we weren't competitive and we weren't in every game until the last minute. We just got to, change the way we finish some of those games, and could have had a much different season.
How do you see the injury kind of impacting maybe your off season? Do you feel like you're going to be in a position? I know some guys will take some time off, let the body heal, but given your injury, do you feel like it's going to take a little bit more time for you to get ready for next year?
No, not at all. Normally I would take November off and kind of ramp up when December comes anyways. It was unfortunate that I wasn't able to play, last 3 games of the season or whatever it was since my injury. But, I'll be out of this sling, the next couple weeks. I should be able to throw and make a full recovery by mid-November, and I'll be able to start December 1st, just kind of with a normal off-season program, off-season routine, and, throwing 3-4 times a week just like I normally would.
A lot of fans enter the season wondering if you were the Grey Cup guy or whether you were, somebody else. You won a lot of people over this year. What do you say to that fan base?
It was cool just to have anybody, support me and believe in me. Got people messaging me on social media or sending me letters and stuff, just, cheering for me and appreciating, the work that I put in. And people who have, it was cool seeing people message me and looking back, and I had messages from them previously as fans from like 2018, 2019, guys who have followed my career for many years now. And so that was just really cool to experience. And obviously, there's nothing for us to play or play for if there aren't people, willing to watch us and spend that time, getting to enjoy what we're doing. So it's really cool to have that perspective and to be able to see people with my jerseys and want autographs and things like that.
Appreciate you.
Ryan, I know this isn't the season you guys envisioned coming off a Grey Cup, but how do you take the lessons from this year and try to get you guys back on where you're supposed to be?
Yeah, I think with a situation like this, you have to try to look at it with a glass half full mentality. Try to find the good things we did on film. There were some games where we were doing a lot of the right things. It's just a few of the crucial moments we made mistakes or made mental errors that were really crucial in those moments. I think we had 9 games, maybe more, that were decided within one score in the last 3 minutes. So even if you just reverse half of those games, we're not having this conversation. So it wasn't all bad all year. There was a lot of good. So you just got to try to take that and build off of it as much as you can.
You guys as an offensive line, go back 2 years ago, even last year, were among the tops in the league. Not only just rushing, but also protecting the quarterback too. I know there was a lot of injuries, a lot of guys coming in and out. Do you feel like just, getting a kind of a restart for this group is what it needs going into the next year?
Yeah, I think so. I think some time away, even for myself with the injury this year, I felt like time away kind of helps me grow as a person and a player. So I'm hoping that, everyone in the locker room takes a bit of time to reflect and then kind of use it as motivation for next year. And I think, as the leader of the group, I view myself as anyway that, how we played this year isn't how we want to be viewed and how we view ourselves. So we want to really attack this offseason and come back and protect the quarterback as much as we can.
How much and you guys did have some younger players, some guys who were a bit inexperienced come in. How much did you feel like, having those guys, even if it was a tough situation to throw them into, maybe did benefit them as they, try to get ready for next year too?
Yeah, I think any experience you can get is a good experience. Even last year with the Grey Cup, we had a rough start to the year, had a lot of young guys who played, and then down the stretch, we relied on those guys in playoff situations, and they shined. So, it's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies when you're playing football, especially in professional football. So some guys got some important reps that maybe they weren't expecting to get this year, and, it all accumulates over time and over the years, and the more you can see things, the more you can experience things, the more you can be prepared for next year.
Not only being injured, but the way that it happened. I mean, when you're away from the game that way, does it make you appreciate the game a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely. I think I miss it a lot more than I normally do, like in an off-season setting, for example. You don't know you're not done with it until it's taken away from you. And I think that was kind of my situation. I think you take for granted playing pro sports for, I think this is now my 8th or 9th year I've completed. So you don't forget how thankful you are to play the game year in and year out. But when it gets taken away from you, when you're not ready for it to, it's kind of like a big slap in the face reminder, like you're lucky to 1, be alive, 2, be walking, and 3, be able to play a game for a living. And so kind of just reinvigorated my passion and my love for the game when I came back.
1 target this year, 1 touchdown. Is the biggest problem with the offense you weren't targeted more?
I mean, if stats don't lie, that's all I'm going to say.
When I know this was a tough year for you, with you battled through a lot of injuries, but what do you think? What do you take from this season for yourself, and how you want to kind of move forward?
That's a great question. You always take this time out at the end of the year to think back on things you can improve, and this year is happening a lot sooner than it's ever happened for me before. So just to kind of look back and think about the places where I miss opportunities and plays, but like miss opportunity of chances of being on the field. It's a lot of injuries and stuff, like you said, I battled this year, man, and I want to be there for my teammates, want to be able to be available. I feel like that's my best ability. And, so I think that's where I'm going to go take a look back and see some of the things I can change, maybe in my diet or in my training, my off-season something. But, just make sure I can be on the field for the whole year.
How tough? I know you just mentioned, like, this is not often you're seeing your season end this early. You're usually, this team has been known only really the playoffs since you have been here. So how does that motivate you to know that, there's now a big push to get back to where you were before?
Yeah, it was a eye-opening season. Just to kind of let us know that it doesn't matter what you've done the year before, whether it's, years back-to-back or whatever. Each year is different. Each season is different. And, everybody that we have on the team is bringing something different. And it's our job to figure out how to, put all that together and make a winning cake. So I'm excited about next season. I'm excited about everybody that's here in this locker room, and we're excited about the possibilities we could have for next year.
Coming back, obviously, because I don't know, are you signed for next year, or do you need a contract for next year?
I need a contract for next year.
So what are those conversations like between you and Michael in the front and Ryan? And I know that you guys were able to get it done, and I know that you were a big priority. So how do you feel that you want to approach this next contract?
I haven't really thought too much about just trying to get the contract done. Like I said, just still kind of reflecting on how the years ended and some of the things that I can improve on. But, those conversations are very genuine. They're always lighthearted, and, it's a free speaking round for both of us. And, it's nothing that I don't think we could ever not get done. I don't think that we were too far on two ends of the spectrum on, the way we think and, what the goal is for the team and things like that. So, I think it'll get done sooner than later. Let's hope.
And this is where you want to be. Like, you've never envisioned, looking elsewhere for, an opportunity. I know that you've had a lot of success here, so it'd be tough, I guess, for you to look elsewhere.
Yeah. I'm not thinking about looking elsewhere at all. Just off the tip of my mind, man, I've played elsewhere, but, man, I've built I guess you can say a legacy here and kind of just built a culture around. I love the fans here, love the facility, love this building, love everybody on this team. And, man, so, I'm just excited, and, I wish to continue to be in the Argonauts.
What also excites you about this group? I know that there was a lot of changes and a lot of new players that were brought in, and, you guys dealt with injuries and things like that. But what do you think excites you about this group going forward?
Honestly, as crazy as it sounds, I would probably say the young guys, man. Like, as young as this team was, it's exciting to me. they showed a lot of hunger, a lot of grit. It's not often that you have, young guys, new guys coming to this league, man, and are able to pick up the game and are able to, help, and, you feel their presence when they're on the field. And I feel like, man, this group of young guys we got here, man, their presence is a force to be reckoned with. They just continue to work, continue to grind, and, continue to have a great leadership.
So, Ryan, just, obviously not the way you wanted your season to end, but how long will it take you to kind of reflect on and kind of look through the whole season and decide kind of the path you want this team to take?
Yeah, I think, we started our meetings, this morning kind of looking at it, look at roster, schematically, how we can change some things, how we're going to operate, training camp in the off season. We got to find ways to get better, right? So obviously this year was disappointing, but at the same time we got to have a lens in it. We can't, we had injuries, all these things that, it doesn't really matter, right? How can we get better as an organization, right? And that starts with me. So, yeah, I'm going to work. It's unfortunate, you're watching other teams play for something, right? And we're getting a head start on next year, which, it's unfortunate, but also at the same time it does give us a chance to get a head start on, finding ways we can get better as an organization.
Have you thought about not just, players on the team, but also just within your staff, any potential changes you want to make, or is that going to take some time to figure out?
Yeah, we got to evaluate everything, right? So we'll get down to that. Obviously, got to sit down with Pinner and Keith and kind of see where we're going at as far as direction of the football club, and that starts with the staff and the players and all those things, right? And I think you got to look into it. It's a tough part about the business, but we all signed up for it, right? We know what's at stake. We got to find ways to be consistent, be in the playoffs each year and give us a chance to fight for a Grey Cup. And obviously we didn't do that this year, so we got a lot to learn from and a lot we can get better at.
You had quite a bit of turnover going into this year. You brought in a lot of players. So how much do you look at trying to bring some continuity going into next year, but also realizing that there are areas you want to obviously improve on?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of areas we got to get better at, right? We got to look at that. Now, continuity, guys that deserve to be here that we feel are good football players that are doing the right things for us as an organization. And we got plenty of those guys. I mean, we didn't play well at times, right? We had a few games that went out of our hands that we, had opportunities to win. But I feel like the culture's still there. The guys work hard. They appreciate each other. They respect each other. We always talk about loyalty, right? I think it's a loyal locker room, but now we got to find ways to win football games. So, let's build off of some of the things we've done in the past, but let's not, embrace the past. Let's go attack the future.
You did have quite a few younger players like Mital and Herzl really kind of step up when the veteran guys were out. How encouraging is that to see those performances, to know that those guys are ones you can count on going forward?
Yeah, no question. Kev having another year under contract, right? And we feel like he's going to have a future with us. So I want him to be at Argo for a long time. I think our receiver unit, they've all, played well, and there's some things we got to get better at. But I thought, that's one of our brighter spots. We lost Coxie, the last 6 games. And I think, he had a great start to the season. Unfortunately, he got hurt. So we got a lot to build on there, right? Offensively, we got to fix some of the O-line issues schematically, and we got to look at all that stuff, right? We got to find a consistent running back, and defensively, I think we got to look at all the position groups. I think our linebacker core has been pretty good. We got a lot of depth there, but there's some areas we got to improve on, and we got to look at the scheme too. Are we putting these guys in an advantageous opportunity to be successful?
Obviously, there's going to be a lot of questions about your quarterback situation with Chad and Nick and all those guys. Do you feel Chad will be good to go for next year? I know that was something that's probably a situation that was tough to go through this year.
Yeah, no doubt. I think there was a lot of unknown going into it. I think we did the best we could with it. Obviously we got to take care of the player first, but also we got to look at the organization, moving forward for the future. Last week he was moving around better than he has. Like he's shown a lot of growth as far as physicality, as far as with his leg. I just didn't think he was mobile enough to play his game. I thought Nick stepped up and did a lot of good things for us, so I'm pretty happy with, quarterback 1, quarterback 2. And we got a lot of youth there, right? And those guys got to see a lot this year. Obviously it was tough, but I thought, Jarrett, was growing. I thought Tucker, had his opportunities, and then obviously you see what Max did, right? So he's got a different skill set. So feel good about that position group. If we just bring all those guys back to camp, I'd be pretty happy. But we also got to, look to other quarterbacks just like we always do, right? Just the nature of the business, right? We want to find the best players we can at all opportunities. We got to, hit the ground running and, go find some new players. And we got to look at free agency, and we got to look at the players that we have that, we want to build our future with.
You obviously also have quite a few veterans you'll probably want to bring back. Like a guy like Wynn, I think it speaks volumes of the type of impact he has. Have you thought about guys like him and valuing how much you want them back, but also knowing that they are getting a bit older and they've had a hard time staying healthy as well?
Yeah, you got to look at age. You got to look at availability. Wynn's had some tough injuries. I thought he came into camp this year, best shape he's been. Looked pretty impressive, and then he had the knee injury in camp. That was unfortunate, but Wynton's really good leader, obviously a good football player, a good person. Really enjoy coaching him. So we got to look at all that stuff, right? I mean, I told those guys today I would love to have them all back, and that's kind of like what I say to them after every year, because how much they put on the line for us. So really appreciate their effort and their loyalty. So yeah, we got to look at a lot of stuff, right? We got to make sure we make the right decisions, right? You can't just go off of emotion. You got to make the right decision, and it's a tough business, right? So there's going to be some tough decisions moving forward.
You just came out of a meeting with players, coaches, staff. What was your message?
Just appreciate them. I thought we lot to learn from, right? We got a lot we got to clean up. Coaches and players, right? You can't just single out one certain thing. Obviously it starts with me. So yeah, we got to find ways to get better. But I thought those guys kept our culture there as far as the locker room. Now the winning culture hasn't been what it's been in the past, but I feel like our locker room culture's been there, right? And that's darn important. Those guys have to respect each other and challenge each other and work in the right way and bring effort and edge every day. That's in your control, right? But there's a lot of areas we can improve on, but I felt like they didn't quit on each other. That's the most important thing.
Final one, message for fans?
Yeah, we're going to hit the ground running. We're going to find ways to get better. Obviously, the last 4 years have been really good for us. Very appreciative of the opportunity. Obviously, a lot of history in this organization, right? So I'm pretty privileged to have this opportunity. But yeah, I'm gonna find ways to get better, and it starts. Obviously, we already got started on it today, but that's what I'm gonna be doing moving forward.